Today we're talking about how a massive trans ban was secretly passed, the new anti-trans bills targeting our IDs, Republicans threatening to shut down the government over trans people, and more on this episode of Huge News. I'm your host, Ty Turner, and the first huge news I have for you today is the inspirational tale of a southern small-town trans man who finally escaped the red hell of the American South and made the journey out west to a state where it's not illegal for him to use the men's room. And that man was me. We're moving to New Mexico! That's right, Christy and I have officially moved across the country to New Mexico, the land of enchantment, on to greener, or rather bluer, pastures, as this is a state with protections for trans people. This is a move we've been wanting to make for a long time now, and it couldn't have happened at a better time, as the election year is going to cause a lot of bullshit for trans folks in the red states, which unfortunately brings us to our first real news story of the day. As I'm sure you know, Florida is the worst state, especially for trans people. They're collecting anti-trans laws like Girl Scout badges over there, and if you look at the bills they have on deck, they're not done. Some highlights include banning anyone under 18 from accessing LGBT content online, redefining the word gender to mean biological sex, erasing any legal recognition of trans people whatsoever, requiring insurance companies to cover conversion therapy, banning all LGBT nonprofits, and a lot more. Unfortunately, I'll link this list down below. If you're in Florida, you'll probably want to check this out. If you're in another red state that tends to follow Florida's lead, definitely check this out. The majority of the anti-trans bills we see are model bills written by special interest groups that are then distributed to all these different states. So it's pretty likely that we're going to see many of these popping up all over the place, as we have with all the other anti-trans bills over the years. But what I want to talk about here is not a bill to be discussed, debated, voted on, and then passed into law, but rather an extreme, sweeping ban that affects every trans person in Florida that was put into place silently behind the scenes without ever being announced to the public. And that is a ban on gender marker changes for trans people, mandating that your driver's license and birth certificate can no longer be amended and must display your sex assigned at birth. And as I said, this ban was never announced publicly. It was sent out in a memo from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles to county tax collectors. And it was made public on Twitter by Alejandro Caraballo. So if we check out the memo here, we can see it says that previously you could update your gender marker, but now you can only replace your license if it's been lost or stolen, and the only changes that can be made are updates to your legal name, address, or restrictions. And then the memo goes on to create a new, apparently legal definition that the state of Florida is going to be recognizing, or at least the motor vehicle department or whatever the fuck. Furthermore, the term gender does not refer to a person's internal sense of his or her gender role or identification, but has historically and commonly been understood as a synonym for sex. It has been misunderstood because those are two different words with two different meanings, which is determined by innate and immutable biological and genetic characteristics. That's not even true because sex itself is not even an actual firm binary. So this is not based on the actual science of how sex works or the meaning of gender, which is not the same thing as sex. But apparently they could just change the law to make words mean whatever they want and do it by sending out a memo, therefore bypassing the entire legal legislation process, which what they're doing here would have been done or might be done by one of the bills we talked about earlier, what is being referred to as the trans erasure bill, where the state is trying to redefine gender to mean sex. So what this memo is doing is essentially skipping that entire process and just saying, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. Are they allowed to do that? I feel like they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Permitting an individual to alter his or her license to reflect an internal sense of gender role or identity undermines the purpose of an identification record and can frustrate the state's ability to enforce its laws. Right, because if my gender marker on my license says male, that's going to really f with people's heads so much more than if it says female. That makes sense. Now, I don't want to confuse anyone. Furthermore, misrepresenting one's gender, understood as sex, which it's not, on a driver's license constitutes fraud and subjects an offender to criminal and civil penalties, including cancellation, suspension, or revocation of his or her driver's license. So Carabello goes on to say any trans person driving with a changed gender marker on their driver's license could be criminally charged with fraud. This interpretation could potentially apply to anyone driving in the state, including tourists. So that would be pretty f***ed. Any out trans person could have their license revoked or suspended at any time under this policy and unlikely to be able to be renewed with the current gender marker. That would really blow. To already have your gender marker changed and then have your license taken away and then changed back. Bruh, there is a pending bill that would have done this, but it seems like they're moving ahead of the legislation, likely trying to stop renewals ahead of its potential passage. Some folks, like the New Republic, are pointing out how this could be a tool for voter suppression. I can tell you that if I had to change my license back to saying female on my gender marker, I would do everything in my power to avoid having to show that to anyone. And of course, if trans people are having their licenses taken away for already having their gender marker changed, then they can't vote either. So we don't love that. However, Florida's Democrats are doing what they can. You know, they're coming together to try to fight this. Every member of Florida's Democratic congressional delegation urged the Biden administration to use his powers to block Florida's driver's license gender marker ban for transgender individuals using the Federal Real ID Act. This notable step marks the first time an entire state's Democratic congressional delegation has requested the administration to intervene to prevent discrimination within the state against transgender individuals. Let's fucking go. Florida Dems, man, I feel for them. I cannot imagine being down there trying to combat just the absolute waist deep and rising every second of the day river of shit that is going on in Florida. So hopefully Biden can rub his last two brain cells together before he slips away into the great beyond and get this shit fixed.
Will you shut up, man?
Now, similarly, but somehow maybe even worse, Iowa has a bill that would require trans people to disclose the fact that they're trans on their ID. Are they wanting us to put a little pink triangle on there? I don't know. So Governor Kim Reynolds' proposal to change how the state addresses sex and gender identity is moving forward at the Iowa State House. We hate to see it. Her bill would require the state to recognize Iowans based on their biological sex, either male or female at birth. So this bill also redefines gender as sex. It also defines man as male, woman as female. It redefines mother, father, basically anything that could have to do with gender. It comes in here and legally says, no, it's sex. It would also require everyone to keep their sex at birth unless they have had surgery, in which case they would be required to put both gender markers. It also tries to redefine equality. It says that equal does not mean same or identical, and separate accommodations are not inherently unequal. So equality doesn't mean we have to actually treat trans people equally. So unfortunately, the bill has passed the committee, but there was a public hearing, and it appears that a lot of people showed up in support of trans folks protesting this. We can even see one of the protesters' signs says, "We will not go back," with the pink triangle crossed out, which, for clarification, during the Holocaust, queer people were forced to wear pink triangles to designate them as homosexuals in the Nazi camps and stuff. There seems to be a similarity here that a lot of people are recognizing. So, Iowa, I hope you get your shit together. Forcing a trans person to out themselves every single time they have to show their ID anywhere really fucking sucks. So don't do that. All right, the next huge news is going to lighten it up a bit. This is what happens when the government asks the internet to report trans people. The Indiana Attorney General made a Snitch site for people to report any gender ideology. This ridiculous snitch line was pointed out by a popular Twitter account that has unfortunately been banned now. And the internet did not disappoint, because this public snitch line was absolutely spammed with memes. So there was a report that Godzilla was witnessed with a trans flag. Guys, I just saw Godzilla at the beach with a trans flag. Better support trans rights or he might get mad. Indiana Jones slapping a Nazi. A report of a famous picture of Trump next to Rudy Giuliani in drag. Witnessed an older man doing inappropriate acts to a drag queen in a public space. news. Multiple reports citing the Bible for teenage pregnancy, young Sheldon saying bazinga, and of course, an invitation to the lemon party. That's nice. You know, sometimes you don't know what you can do to stand up for trans people in times like these. But you know, young people are so creative and there's always something you can do. But don't do this. And now it's time to go to our field correspondent for the weather.
Baby's a baby. It's windy out. I thought this baby's big. You're dusty. Good lord. There's a fucking honey bear right there.
Alright, now we know that was the weather, and now for our next huge news. Republicans are threatening to shut down the government over trans people. Two of their favorite things: bringing democracy to a grinding halt, and also targeting a marginalized group of people that makes up like less than 3% of the population, but is somehow public enemy number one to these people. I'm so fucking sick of them, I don't even want to read this. So Aaron in the Morning reported on this saying, on Wednesday, the House Freedom Caucus published a letter threatening a government shutdown in which it outlines a number of policies that are needed to supposedly avert such a result. Listed among these policies are restrictions on gender-affirming care, transgender participation in sports, DEI programs, and defunding Planned Parenthood. This comes after nearly a dozen riders targeting transgender people have been inserted into numerous government spending bills that could result in large-scale government shutdowns if not handled by March 8th. So that's enough for me. I'll put the link to the full article below, but I feel like you get the picture, right? They fucking eat glue. It's literally just bullshit to make it look like they're doing something, when all they really do is remove rights from individuals and give rights to huge corporations. Biden, I am willing you, please, with your last breath, just say no to this.
Shut up.
So yeah, that's enough of that. Now, oh my god, our final huge news. I'm going to end it on the best note with literally one of the most wonderful things I have ever seen. Mouse filmed tidying up man's shed every night. Despite being an avid wildlife photographer, retired postman Rodney Holbrook never expected to capture a Ratatouille-style scene unfolding in his own shed. After regularly discovering that things from the night before had been mysteriously tidied, he set up a night vision camera on his workbench. It captured a mouse picking up clothes pegs, corks, nuts, and bolts. He has since nicknamed the well-kept rodent Welsh Tidy Mouse. Let's watch. Oh my gosh. He picks everything up. Oh my gosh, he goes out and he picks up another one. Oh my god. Oh my god, look at him. He's picking everything up and he's putting it in the tray. Oh my god. I love this mouse. Oh my gosh, he's got a big cup. It's a little cup, but it's a big cup for him. Look at this genius. Are you kidding me, bro? This is the best shit I've ever seen in my life. Oh, it's just like, I feel cleansed. This is what I needed after today's news stories. All right, that's where we're going to call it. This has been Huge News. I'm your host, Ty Turner. I hope you enjoyed the show. Subscribe to join the Goose Troop today. 1 like equals 1 home. And of course, stay huge.